Hello, my friend. Welcome to Vivid Voices. Now, gently put on your headphones, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and relax as you drift off to a collection of calming Indian folktales. First story. Lack of rupees for a piece of advice is a fascinating folktale from Indian literature, often associated with the Panchatantra, which conveys profound wisdom through simple yet captivating stories. Once upon a time, in a small village in India, there lived a wealthy merchant who had 3 sons. The merchant was growing old, and as he sensed his time nearing, he decided it was essential to impart some life lessons to his children so they could continue living wisely after his death. However, the merchant's 3 sons, though intelligent, lacked the wisdom and experience to navigate the complexities of life and business. One day, the merchant fell gravely ill. On his deathbed, he called his 3 sons and told them, "I have worked hard all my life and earned a considerable fortune. After I am gone, you will inherit my wealth. But remember, true wealth is not in gold or silver. It lies in wisdom. I advise you to travel and seek advice from wise men. Spend money if you must, but return with valuable lessons that will guide you throughout your lives." Soon after, the merchant passed away, leaving behind his sons who were now in charge of his fortune. Determined to honor their father's wishes, the 3 sons decided to venture into the world in search of wisdom. The eldest son's journey. The eldest son was the first to set out. He traveled far and wide, visiting various towns and cities, but his quest for wisdom seemed futile at first. In one bustling marketplace, he overheard a wise old man giving advice to a crowd. Curious, the eldest son approached the man, hoping to receive valuable guidance. The old man, sensing the young man's eagerness, said, "For 1 lakh of rupees, I will give you a piece of advice that will change your life forever." The eldest son was taken aback by the enormous sum of money demanded for just a piece of advice, but he remembered his father's words and decided to pay the price. The old man looked him in the eye and said, "Never put off till tomorrow what you can do today." The eldest son pondered over the advice. At first, he was disappointed, thinking he had spent a large fortune on something so simple and obvious. But as he traveled back home, he realized the wisdom behind the words. Upon his return, he applied this advice in his daily life, ensuring that all important tasks were completed without delay. This habit led him to great success in his business and personal life, as he became known for his efficiency and reliability. The second son's journey. Inspired by his elder brother's success, the second son set out on his own journey, eager to gain valuable wisdom. After traveling for some time, he came across a small village where an elderly wise woman lived. The villagers spoke highly of her ability to solve problems with her simple yet profound insights. The second son approached her and asked for advice. She too demanded a lakh of rupees in exchange for her wisdom. Without hesitation, the second son handed her the money. The wise woman smiled and said, "One should always stay away from dangerous situations, no matter how tempting they may seem." Though puzzled by the advice at first, the second son soon encountered a situation that made its meaning clear. As he traveled back to his village, he stopped at an inn. There, a group of people invited him to join them in a risky business venture that promised high rewards. Tempted by the potential profits, he remembered the old woman's words and declined the offer. Later, he learned that the venture was fraudulent and those who had participated lost everything. Grateful for the advice, the second son returned home safely and prospered by avoiding unnecessary risks. The youngest son's journey. Finally, the youngest son set out on his journey. He traveled for many months, exploring distant lands, but was unsuccessful in finding any meaningful advice. One day, while passing through a remote town, he came across a wise sage meditating by the river. Desperate, the youngest son approached the sage and pleaded for advice. The sage, after hearing his story, agreed to help him in exchange for a lakh of rupees. The youngest son, having faith in his father's teaching, paid the sum. The sage then said, "Always think twice before acting." The youngest son, although appreciative of the advice, felt unsure of its immediate value. However, during his journey back home, the wisdom of the sage revealed itself. He came across a river that he needed to cross to continue his journey. There was a boatman who offered to take him across, but something about the situation felt suspicious. Remembering the sage's words, the youngest son decided to wait and observe before acting. To his horror, he soon realized that the boatman was a notorious thief who had been robbing and harming travelers. By thinking twice before getting on the boat, the youngest son had saved his life. He returned home safely, carrying with him a valuable lesson that would protect him in future endeavors. The reunion. Upon their return, the three brothers gathered to discuss the wisdom they had gained on their journeys. Each shared their experience and the advice they had received. The eldest son spoke of the importance of not procrastinating. The second son shared the significance of avoiding danger, and the youngest son emphasized the need to think twice before acting. Together, they realized the immense value of the lessons they had learned. By applying these pieces of advice, the brothers became prosperous and wise leaders in their community, earning respect and admiration from everyone around them. They understood that their father had not merely left them with wealth, but had encouraged them to seek wisdom, which was far more valuable in the long run. Thus, the story of a lac of rupees for a piece of advice teaches us that wisdom is worth any price, and even the simplest advice, when applied with understanding, can lead to great success in life. The moral of the story is that valuable lessons often come at a cost, but their benefits last a lifetime. Second story. The Demon with the Matted Hair is a folktale from the Jataka collection, which tells stories from the previous lives of the Buddha. This particular tale revolves around compassion, wisdom, and overcoming one's inner demons. Once upon a time, in the dense forests of ancient India, there lived a terrifying demon named Jujaka. He was known throughout the land for his monstrous appearance and his cruel, bloodthirsty nature. His hair was long, tangled, and matted, like a wild mass that grew uncontrollably on his head. His eyes gleamed with malevolence, and his sharp, jagged teeth sent shivers down the spine of anyone who dared cross his path. Jujaka, the demon with the matted hair, dwelled in a dark and foreboding forest. He would capture any unfortunate traveler who passed through his territory, devouring them without mercy. The demon thrived on fear and suffering, growing more powerful with each soul he consumed. The people living in the nearby villages were terrified of Jujaka. They avoided the forest at all costs, knowing that entering it meant certain death. They prayed to the gods for protection, but none dared to face the demon themselves. The Buddha's past life. At that time, the Buddha was reborn as a wise and compassionate ascetic, a being full of virtue and wisdom. He had chosen a life of solitude in the forest, dedicating himself to meditation and selflessness. His only possession was a simple hermit's robe, and his sole desire was to find peace and help others find it too. One day, while meditating under a great tree, the ascetic heard about the terrifying demon with the matted hair who had been terrorizing the region. The villagers told him how Jujaka was invincible and unstoppable, and how no one had ever returned after encountering him. Unlike others, the ascetic was not filled with fear upon hearing this. He felt deep compassion for the demon, understanding that Jujaka's cruelty stemmed from his suffering and ignorance. Instead of avoiding the demon, the ascetic resolved to confront him and help him find peace.
The confrontation.
With nothing but his calm demeanor and unwavering resolve, the ascetic ventured into the heart of the forest. As he walked deeper into the dark woods, the trees grew taller and denser, casting long shadows on the ground. The air became thick with the scent of decay, and the sounds of the jungle seemed to vanish, leaving an eerie silence. Suddenly, the ascetic came face to face with Jujaka. The demon loomed before him, a menacing figure with wild, matted hair, glowing eyes, and a snarl on his lips. "Who dares to enter my domain?" roared Jujaka. "No one leaves here alive." Without fear, the ascetic bowed respectfully before the demon and said, "I am but a humble seeker of truth. I come not to challenge you, but to help you find peace." Jujaka was taken aback. No one had ever spoken to him like this before. Most ran in terror, pleading for their lives. Intrigued but still suspicious, the demon growled, "Why would you help me? I am a demon, a destroyer of life. What can a mere mortal like you offer me? The ascetic responded gently, You are not beyond redemption, Jujaka. Your suffering, your anger, and your cruelty stem from the chaos within you. Let me help you find peace so you no longer need to live in this torment. The test of compassion, Jujaka sneered. Peace? You speak of peace to me? You, who are nothing but a weak ascetic? I could crush you right now, and no one would know. The demon lunged at the ascetic, ready to attack. But instead of running or defending himself, the ascetic remained perfectly calm. He closed his eyes and stood still, offering no resistance. His peaceful aura radiated outward, and for the first time in his life, Jujaka felt something strange, hesitation. Confused by the ascetic's lack of fear and his calmness, Jujaka stopped mid-attack. Why do you not fear me? The demon asked. The ascetic opened his eyes and replied, I feel no fear because I do not see a demon before me. I see a being in pain. I see someone who has lost his way. You are not my enemy, Jujaka. You are a soul that needs healing. Jujaka was stunned by these words. No one had ever spoken to him with such kindness. His mind, which had been clouded with hatred for centuries, began to clear. For the first time, he felt the weight of his actions, the pain he had inflicted on others, and the suffering he had endured in return. The demon fell to his knees, his once terrifying form now trembling with remorse. The transformation. Jujaka looked up at the ascetic with tear-filled eyes. I have lived a life of destruction and cruelty for so long that I have forgotten what it is to be free of this burden. Can you truly help me find peace? The ascetic knelt beside him and placed a gentle hand on the demon's shoulder. Yes, you can be free, Jujaka. But first, you must let go of your anger, your hatred, and your desire for power. These things only bring more suffering. Instead, open your heart to compassion and kindness. Jujaka wept bitterly. His matted hair, once a symbol of his wild and untamed nature, began to fall away, replaced by soft, flowing locks. His monstrous appearance softened, and the glow in his eyes changed from a fiery red to a calm, serene light. As Jujaka let go of his rage, his body transformed completely. He no longer resembled the demon he had once been. Instead, he became a gentle and peaceful being, filled with gratitude and humility. The ascetic smiled and said, You are free now. Go and live your life in harmony with the world. Use your strength to protect others, not harm them. The lesson. Jujaka, now transformed, left the forest and traveled to the nearby villages, where the people were shocked to see the once terrifying demon had changed. No longer did he bring fear and destruction. Instead, he offered protection and kindness, using his strength to help those in need. The villagers, once afraid of him, came to respect Jujaka, and he lived the rest of his days in peace. As for the ascetic, he continued his journey of spreading compassion and wisdom, knowing that even the darkest soul could find redemption through kindness and understanding. The story of the demon with the matted hair teaches us that even the most fearsome and seemingly irredeemable beings can find peace if they are shown compassion and given the opportunity to change. It emphasizes the transformative power of kindness and the importance of seeing beyond external appearances to the suffering that lies within. Third story. The story of how the wicked sons were duped comes from the ancient Indian wisdom texts known as the Panchatantra, a collection of fables that impart moral lessons through entertaining tales. This particular story teaches about greed, deception, and the cleverness of the wise. Once upon a time in a small village in ancient India, there lived an old and wealthy man. He was known throughout the village for his wisdom and generosity, but as he grew older, he became concerned about his 3 sons. The old man had worked hard all his life, accumulating a significant fortune, but his sons were lazy, selfish, and lacked any sense of responsibility. The 3 sons were wicked and spent their days indulging in luxuries, squandering whatever money their father gave them, without showing any interest in hard work or business. They believed that since their father was wealthy, they would inherit all his money when he died and could continue living a life of ease. The old man, realizing that his sons were neither hardworking nor wise, feared that they would waste his fortune after his death. He wanted to teach them a lesson about the value of hard work and responsibility, so he devised a clever plan to bring them to their senses. The father's illness and plan. One day, the old man pretended to fall gravely ill. He called his 3 sons to his bedside and told them, "My dear sons, I am not long for this world. Before I die, I want to tell you a secret that will ensure your future happiness and wealth." The sons, thinking that their father was going to reveal the location of his hidden treasure, eagerly gathered around him. The old man continued, "I have buried a great treasure somewhere in our fields. However, I do not remember the exact spot. But I can tell you this, if you work hard and dig the entire field, you will surely find the treasure. It lies buried deep beneath the soil." The sons' eyes lit up at the mention of treasure. They had always wanted an easy way to gain wealth, and now their father was offering them exactly what they wanted. They promised to dig the entire field as soon as he passed away to unearth the hidden treasure. The sons begin digging. A few days later, the old man passed away, and the 3 sons, eager to find the treasure, wasted no time in setting out to dig the field. They brought spades, hoes, and shovels and began turning the soil over, believing that their efforts would soon be rewarded with gold and jewels. From morning until night, they worked tirelessly, digging up every inch of the field. Days passed, and they dug deeper and deeper, but no treasure appeared. The sons were growing frustrated, but they continued, convinced that the treasure was just a little further beneath the earth. As they dug, they turned the entire field, making the soil soft and fertile. But by the end of their search, they had found no treasure at all. Exhausted and disappointed, they sat down to rest, cursing their bad luck. The wisdom of the father's plan. A wise neighbor, who had been watching the sons work tirelessly in the field, approached them and said, "Your father was a wise man. Chunit, while you did not find the treasure you were seeking, you have prepared the soil for planting. Why don't you sow seeds in this well-tilled field? Perhaps you will reap a different kind of treasure." The sons, though still disappointed, decided to follow the neighbor's advice. They bought seeds, planted them in the field, and waited for the harvest. With the soil freshly turned and the seeds sown at the right time, the crops grew lush and plentiful. When harvest season arrived, the sons were amazed at the bountiful yield. The grain they harvested fetched a great price in the market, bringing them wealth far beyond what they had imagined. The sons finally realized the wisdom of their father's plan. He had tricked them into working hard by promising them a treasure, and though they didn't find gold buried in the ground, they discovered the real treasure, hard work and its rewards. The land had always held the key to their fortune, but it required their effort to bring it to life. The lesson. The sons, having learned the value of hard work, continued to care for their field and grew prosperous through honest labor. They no longer relied on the false hope of hidden treasure or their father's wealth, but became responsible and successful in their own right. Thus, the wicked sons, who once sought easy wealth without effort, were duped by their wise father into discovering the true path to success. The old man's clever plan had worked, transforming his lazy sons into diligent men who now understood that the real treasure was the fruit of their labor. The moral of the story is that there are no shortcuts to wealth and success. Hard work and dedication are the real treasures that lead to a fulfilling and prosperous life. The Good Husband and the Bad Wife is another tale from the Panchatantra, a collection of ancient Indian fables that impart moral lessons through engaging stories. This tale emphasizes patience, wisdom, and the consequences of greed and ill-tempered behavior. Once upon a time, in a quiet village, there lived a kind and hardworking man named Dharamdas. He was known for his honesty, compassion, and diligence. No matter how difficult life became, Dharamdas always maintained a calm and peaceful demeanor. His neighbors respected him, and he was considered the most trustworthy person in the village. However, Dharamdas' fortune in his personal life did not reflect his virtuous character. His wife, Kamla, was the complete opposite of him. She was greedy, selfish, and had a terrible temper. Kamla constantly complained, whether about the household chores or the little money her husband earned. No matter how hard Dharamdas worked, Kamla was never satisfied, always wanting more luxury and comforts that they couldn't afford. Despite Kamla's bad temper and selfishness, Dharamdas remained patient and kind. He hoped that one day she would change her ways, but as time passed, Kamla's behavior only worsened. She scolded Dharamdas over trivial matters, insulted him in front of others, and wasted the little money they had on unnecessary things. The husband's patience. Dharamdas, being a good-hearted and tolerant man, never retaliated against Kamla's harshness. He believed that responding with kindness might eventually change her attitude. He toiled away in the fields, earning just enough to keep the household running, while Kamla continued her relentless complaining. One day, Dharamdas found a job working as a servant for a wealthy merchant in a nearby town. The job paid well, but it required him to stay away from home for many months. Dharamdas knew that the money he would earn would greatly benefit their household, so he accepted the offer. Before leaving, he gave Kamla what little savings they had and instructed her to use it wisely. However, as soon as Dharamdas left, Kamla squandered the money on frivolous items such as jewelry and expensive clothing instead of taking care of the household. She lived lavishly for a short while, but soon enough the money ran out and she found herself in debt. Dharamdas's return. After several months, Dharamdas returned home, having earned a good amount of money from his work. He was excited to see Kamla and hoped that the money he brought back would make her happy. However, when he arrived, he found their house in disarray, with nothing to show for the money he had left behind. Kamla, instead of being ashamed of her actions, angrily blamed Dharamdas for being away for too long and not giving her enough money to begin with. She scolded him for not providing her with the luxuries she desired, even though Dharamdas had worked tirelessly to secure their livelihood. Despite the unfair accusations, Dharamdas did not respond with anger. Instead, he quietly listened to her complaints and decided to give her another chance. He handed over the money he had earned from his time away and asked Kamla to manage it properly so they could live comfortably. The wife's greed. Kamla, however, had not learned her lesson. Instead of using the money wisely, she became even greedier. She spent lavishly again, believing that her husband would always find a way to earn more. When the money ran out this time, Kamla began borrowing from neighbors, promising to repay them soon. She purchased even more luxurious items, hoping to impress the villagers. Eventually, the debt grew so large that their family's reputation in the village began to suffer. The neighbors stopped lending her money, and the creditors came knocking at their door, demanding repayment. Dharamdas, who had been quietly working to earn enough to pay off the debts, once again found himself in a difficult position. The merchant's test. The wealthy merchant Dharamdas had previously worked for who heard about his plight and decided to help. The merchant, who respected Dharamdas for his honesty and hard work, called him to his estate and offered him a proposition. He said, "Dharamdas, I know you are a good and loyal man, and I want to help you. I will give you a large sum of money, but I want you to spend it wisely. However, before I give it to you, I want to test your wife." The merchant explained his plan. Dharamdas was to tell Kamla that he had earned a huge fortune, but had buried it for safekeeping. The merchant wanted to see if Kamla would encourage Dharamdas to use the money wisely, or if her greed would lead her to demand it all at once. Kamla's reaction. Dharamdas agreed to the plan and returned home to tell Kamla the news. He said, "Kamla, I have good news. I have earned a huge sum of money, but I have buried it safely. We can dig it up and use it wisely, but we must be careful not to waste it." Upon hearing this, Kamla's eyes gleamed with greed. She demanded that Dharamdas immediately dig up the treasure and give her control of it. She refused to listen to his suggestion of using it slowly and wisely, insisting that they spend it all at once on luxurious things. Dharamdas sighed, realizing that his wife had not changed. He reported back to the merchant, who, after seeing Kamla's true nature, withdrew his offer of money. The consequences. When Kamla found out that there was no buried treasure and that the wealthy merchant had tested her, she was furious. But by then, it was too late. The villagers, fed up with her constant borrowing and deceit, turned their backs on her. She had lost her reputation, and her greed had left her with nothing. As for Dharamdas, he remained patient and continued his honest work. He eventually repaid all the debts that Kamla had incurred, and though his life was difficult, his hard work earned him respect and stability once again. The lesson: Kamla's greed and bad temper led to her downfall, while Dharamdas's patience, kindness, and wisdom saved him in the end. The story teaches that greed and selfishness can destroy a person, while hard work, honesty, and self-control are the true paths to a happy and prosperous life. The story, Good Luck to the Lucky One, or Shall I Fall Down?, comes from the Panchatantra, an ancient collection of fables that offer moral lessons through stories involving animals, humans, and gods. This particular tale teaches about fate, luck, and wisdom, and it reminds us that sometimes fortune smiles upon us unexpectedly, but we should always remain cautious and humble. Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, there was a poor but wise young man named Somalaka. He was a skilled weaver, known for creating the finest clothes with intricate designs. Despite his talents, Somalaka struggled to make ends meet. No matter how hard he worked, he could barely earn enough money to feed himself and his family. His situation frustrated him greatly, as others around him who were far less skilled seemed to be prospering. Somalaka often wondered why luck never favored him, even though he worked diligently day and night. He believed that if only fortune would smile upon him, he could become wealthy and enjoy the finer things in life. The decision to move to the city. One day, after much thought, Somalaka decided to leave his village and move to the city, hoping that his luck might change there. Perhaps the city holds better opportunities, he thought. If I can sell my fine clothes to wealthy customers, I can finally live the life I deserve. So, Somalaka packed up his belongings and set off for the city. Upon arriving, he quickly found work, and his exquisite weaving skills were soon recognized by the city's wealthy merchants and noblemen. They paid him well for his craftsmanship, and within a short time, Somalaka had earned a significant amount of money. Feeling elated by his newfound success, Somalaka began to dream of the luxurious life he would now enjoy. However, as he prepared to return to his village with his earnings, he couldn't shake a feeling of unease. Something in his heart told him that perhaps his good fortune wouldn't last. The journey home and the mysterious voice. Somalaka set out for his village, carrying with him the wealth he had accumulated in the city. As he walked through the forest, his mind raced with thoughts of how his life was about to change forever. But then, as dusk approached, something strange happened. As he was walking along a narrow path, he suddenly heard a voice from above, whispering, "Shall I fall down?" Somalaka looked around, startled, but saw no one. The voice seemed to come from the heavens themselves. He continued walking, thinking he had imagined it, but the voice echoed once more, "Shall I fall down?" Somalaka, now frightened and confused, stopped in his tracks. He called out, "Who is speaking to me? And what do you mean by 'shall I fall down'?" The voice responded, "I am Good Luck, and I ask you, shall I fall upon you and change your fortune?" Somalaka, overwhelmed with excitement, immediately replied, "Yes, yes, please, fall upon me and bless me with good luck." But the voice remained calm and said, "Are you sure you want this? You must understand that luck does not always favor those who are truly deserving. It may come and go as it pleases, and it may even bring consequences you do not foresee." Somalaka, blinded by his desire for wealth and success, eagerly agreed. "Yes, I understand, but I am ready to accept whatever comes. I need my fortune to change." The voice of Good Luck, satisfied with Somalaka's answer, said, "Very well, then. Good luck shall be yours." The surprise on returning home. With renewed energy and optimism, Somalaka continued his journey home. When he arrived back in his village, he expected to be greeted with admiration and envy by his fellow villagers. After all, he was now a wealthy man, no longer the struggling weaver they once knew. However, as he approached his home, He was shocked to find that his house, which had always been humble and worn down, was now grand and splendid. It was adorned with beautiful decorations, and inside, his wife and children were dressed in fine clothes, living a life of luxury. Somalaka could hardly believe his eyes. How had this happened? He had been away for so long, working tirelessly to earn money, yet it seemed as if good luck had already blessed his family in his absence. His wife greeted him warmly and explained, "While you were away, something miraculous happened. Wealth came to us unexpectedly, and we no longer struggled to survive. We are now among the richest families in the village." Somalaka, confused and slightly resentful, realized that while he had been working so hard in the city, good luck had fallen upon his family without him. His efforts, it seemed, had not been the source of their newfound wealth. Instead, fortune had come to them by sheer chance without his hard labor. The realization. Somalaka sat down in disbelief. The very thing he had desired, wealth and success, had come to his family without him earning it, while he had toiled in the city. He began to question the nature of fate and fortune. He had believed that through his skill and effort, he could change his destiny, but now he saw that luck played a far greater role than he had imagined. In the end, Somalaka realized that while hard work and skill are important, luck is an unpredictable force that cannot always be controlled. He had spent so much time chasing wealth, but fortune had arrived when he least expected it. The moral of the story. The story of Somalaka teaches us that luck and fate often operate in mysterious ways. While hard work and perseverance are necessary, they do not always guarantee success. Sometimes fortune may come to those who do not seek it, while others may struggle despite their best efforts. Ultimately, the story reminds us to remain humble and accept the twists of fate with wisdom and grace. The Son of Seven Queens is a fairy tale of royalty, love, betrayal, and perseverance. It teaches about the power of determination and kindness, even in the face of great adversity. Once upon a time, there was a king who had 7 beautiful queens. Although the king loved each of his queens dearly, none of them could give him a child, which caused the king great sorrow. He desperately wanted an heir to his throne, but despite all efforts, the queens remained childless. One day, while the king was out hunting in the forest, he came across a holy man. The king poured out his heart to the sage, lamenting the fact that he had no children. The holy man, moved by the king's sorrow, gave him a magic fruit and said, "Give this fruit to one of your queens, and she will bear you a son." Overjoyed, the king returned home and decided to divide the fruit equally among all 7 queens so that they could all share in the happiness of having a child. But as fate would have it, only the youngest queen became pregnant, while the other 6 queens remained childless. This stirred feelings of jealousy and bitterness in the hearts of the 6 queens. The plot of the jealous queens. As time passed, the youngest queen gave birth to a handsome, healthy boy. The king was overjoyed and celebrated the birth of his long-awaited heir with great fanfare. However, the other 6 queens were consumed with envy. They could not bear the thought of the youngest queen having the king's affection and giving him the heir he so longed for. In their jealousy, the 6 queens hatched an evil plan. When the king was away from the palace on royal business, the 6 queens sneaked into the youngest queen's chamber, stole her newborn son, and replaced him with a puppy. They then took the baby to the nearby royal garden, where they buried him alive in a deep pit. When the king returned, the 6 queens pretended to be horrified and showed him the puppy, saying that the youngest queen had given birth to a dog, not a human child. Heartbroken and deceived by the 6 queens, the king ordered that the youngest queen be banished to the royal dungeon, believing that she had shamed him. The youngest queen wept in sorrow and despair, but was powerless to defend herself. The boy and the gardener. Meanwhile, the young prince, buried alive in the garden, was miraculously saved by the grace of a powerful snake goddess. The goddess watched over him and protected him in the pit. Every night she would come and nurse the boy with milk from her own body. The boy survived this way, though no one knew of his existence. Years passed, and one day the king's gardener, while digging in the royal garden, accidentally unearthed the pit where the boy had been buried. To his astonishment, he found a handsome young boy, alive and healthy. The gardener, having no children of his own, decided to raise the boy as his own son. The boy grew up in the gardener's small hut, completely unaware of his royal heritage. The truth revealed. As the boy grew older, he became increasingly curious about his origins. He noticed that his features and behavior were different from those of the gardener and his wife. He began to question who he really was, but the gardener always evaded the question, fearing what might happen if the truth came out. One day, while working in the royal garden, the boy happened to catch the eye of the 6 queens who were walking nearby. They were struck by how much he resembled the king. Panic set in, and they realized that this must be the child they had buried years ago. Afraid that their secret would be exposed, the 6 queens decided to kill the boy to protect themselves. They tricked the boy into fetching water from a dangerous well, hoping that he would fall in and meet his demise. But just as the boy was about to fall, the snake goddess who had once saved him appeared again and protected him from harm. The boy returned safely, much to the frustration of the 6 queens. The role of the snake goddess. The snake goddess continued to watch over the boy, saving him from the queen's repeated attempts on his life. No matter what dangerous task they assigned him, the boy always returned unscathed. His miraculous survival earned him the king's attention. One day, the king noticed the boy and was struck by his resemblance to himself. The boy's kind heart, wisdom, and courage impressed the king, who began to take a special interest in him. Suspecting that something unusual was going on, the king summoned the boy and asked him about his life. The boy, unsure of his origins, told the king all he knew. The gardener, summoned to court, revealed how he had found the boy years ago, buried in the royal garden. This revelation shocked the king, who began to suspect foul play. The youngest queen's redemption. The king decided to investigate the matter further. He questioned the 6 queens, who denied everything, but their lies quickly unraveled. The king's heart ached when he realized the truth. The boy was indeed his son, and the youngest queen had been wronged. He rushed to the dungeon where the youngest queen had been held captive for all these years and begged for her forgiveness. Overjoyed to be reunited with her son, the youngest queen wept with happiness. The king immediately restored her to her rightful place as the queen and declared the boy as his heir. The 6 wicked queens were banished from the kingdom for their treachery. The moral of the story. Thus, the son of 7 queens was finally reunited with his true family and took his rightful place as the crown prince. The story teaches us that no matter how much evil may conspire against the innocent, truth and justice will eventually triumph. The boy's survival was ensured not just by divine intervention, but also by his own goodness and the love of those who cared for him. The tale emphasizes that patience, kindness, and perseverance can overcome even the darkest of times, and that those who plot evil will ultimately face the consequences of their actions. The tiger, the Brahman, and the jackal is a famous Indian folktale from the Panchatantra that teaches an important lesson about cleverness and gratitude. It is a story of a kind-hearted man, a deceptive tiger, and a cunning jackal who outsmarts them all. The kind Brahman and the trapped tiger. Once upon a time, in a small village, there lived a kind and pious Brahman. He was known for his generosity and devotion to helping others. One hot afternoon, as he was walking through the forest, he heard a deep growling sound and the frantic cries of a trapped animal. Following the sound, the Brahmin came upon a tiger that had fallen into a pit. The tiger was pacing back and forth, desperate to escape. Upon seeing the Brahman, the tiger called out, "Oh, kind Brahman, please help me. I have been trapped here for hours and I am starving. If you help me out of this pit, I promise I will not harm you." The Brahmin was unsure. He knew that tigers were dangerous creatures, and if he freed the tiger, it might attack him. But the tiger pleaded with him, saying, "I am in great need, and I give you my word that I will not hurt you. Please, have mercy on me." The Brahmin, being compassionate by nature, could not bear to see the tiger suffer. Reluctantly, he agreed to help. He found a long branch and lowered it into the pit so the tiger could climb out. The tiger quickly scrambled up the branch and escaped the pit. No sooner had the tiger emerged from the pit than it let out a fearsome growl and circled the Brahman. "Now that I am free," said the tiger, "I am very hungry. I'm afraid I have no choice but to eat you." The Brahman was horrified. "But you promised, you gave me your word that you wouldn't harm me," he exclaimed. The tiger, licking its chops, replied, "I was desperate. A starving creature cannot be held to such promises. Now prepare yourself to be my meal." Realizing the tiger was not going to keep its promise, the Brahman quickly tried to reason with him. "At least give me a chance to plead my case. Let us ask 3 others whether it is fair for you to break your promise after I saved your life. If they agree with you, then I will accept my fate." The tiger, amused by the Brahman's desperation, agreed. "Very well. Let's ask 3 others and see what they say." The first witness, the banyan tree. The Brahman and the tiger set off through the forest and soon came across a large banyan tree. The Brahman told the tree what had happened and asked, "Is it right for the tiger to eat me after I saved its life?" The banyan tree, with its drooping branches and thick roots, sighed deeply. "In this world, no one repays kindness. Look at me. I give shade to all who come beneath my branches, yet people break my branches, carve their names into my trunk, and show me no gratitude. It is the way of the world." The tiger grinned triumphantly, but the Brahman insisted on asking 2 more witnesses. The second witness. The buffalo next. They came upon an old buffalo tied to a plow. The Brahman again told the story and asked, "Is it right for the tiger to eat me after I saved its life?" The buffalo chewed its cud slowly and said, "In this world, kindness is often repaid with cruelty. Once I provided my master with milk when I was young and strong. But now that I am old and cannot give milk, my master forces me to pull the plow all day. He no longer values me. So yes, it is fair for the tiger to repay your kindness in such a way." The tiger growled in satisfaction, believing the Brahman's fate was sealed. However, the Brahman pleaded for one final witness. The third witness, the jackal. As they continued through the forest, the Brahman and the tiger encountered a clever-looking jackal sitting by the roadside. The Brahman explained the situation for the 3rd time and asked the jackal whether it was fair for the tiger to eat him after he had saved its life. The jackal, scratching its head, replied, "Oh dear, I'm afraid I don't quite understand. This seems like a very confusing situation. Could you show me exactly what happened? Perhaps then I can give you my judgment." The tiger, impatient but confident in its position, agreed to show the jackal what had happened. "It's simple," the tiger growled. "I was trapped in a pit, and this foolish Brahmin helped me out. Now I want to eat him." The jackal tilted his head and said, "I still don't understand. How exactly were you trapped? Show me how you were stuck in the pit." The tiger, eager to demonstrate, leaped back into the pit and paced around. "See? I was stuck down here, and the Brahmin helped me out." The jackal, now smiling slyly, said, "Ah, now I see. You were trapped in the pit just like this, and now that you're back in the pit, let's make sure you stay there." Quick as a flash, the jackal motioned for the Brahman to pull the branch away, leaving the tiger trapped in the pit once again. The moral. The Brahman, overjoyed and thankful, bowed deeply to the clever jackal for saving his life. The jackal winked and said, "It is only fair that those who deceive and betray their promises end up where they belong." The moral of the story is clear. Wisdom and cleverness can overcome brute strength and betrayal. The Brahman learned that kindness is important, but so is caution when dealing with those who might not repay it. So these were the Indian folktales. I hope you enjoyed them and have now fallen asleep.